Florida is now battling more than 300,000 giant pythons, turning the largest wetland in North America into a silent ecological battlefield. In just a few decades, a species that never belonged here has quietly climbed to the top of the food chain, devouring small mammals and pushing many native populations close to disappearance. Authorities have deployed professional hunting teams, launched large-scale removal campaigns, and spent over $10 million trying to control their spread. But even that has struggled against the python's explosive reproduction rate. What is even more surprising is that the same species creating serious problems in the United States is legally farmed in Vietnam as part of an economic industry. From python leather used in high-end fashion to specialty python meat dishes with a unique but surprisingly appealing taste. So what exactly happened? Let's find out together with Mandarin Tech. The Burmese python did not arrive in Florida naturally. It is a large predator native to Southeast Asia and South Asia, where it has lived as a stable part of local ecosystems for more than 2 million years, functioning as a familiar predator in the food chain. In its native habitat, it is not considered a major threat. But everything began to change when humans brought the species into a completely different environment. From 1975 to 2018, during the boom of the exotic pet trade in the United States, about 180,000 Burmese pythons were legally imported and widely sold as unusual pets. However, the small snakes kept in glass tanks quickly grew into animals up to 5 meters long and weighing more than 70 kilograms, far beyond what most owners could manage. As they grew larger, the cost increased, the risks increased, and more individuals were released into the wild. This disaster did not begin with a single event. It developed quietly over decades. Those released pythons eventually found what was almost a perfect place to survive: the Everglades. Located in southern Florida, the Everglades is a wetland ecosystem covering more than 6,000 square kilometers. A maze of shallow water, reeds, and mangrove forests forming a hot, humid landscape. In this environment, with almost no predators strong enough to compete with them, pythons quickly moved into the top position of the food chain. They do not chase their prey. Instead, pythons remain motionless for hours beneath thick grass, almost completely blending into their surroundings while waiting for animals to come close. In just a few seconds, their powerful constriction ends everything. Their diet ranges from water birds, rabbits, and raccoons to young deer. And in some shocking cases, researchers have even recorded individuals swallowing alligators longer than 1.8 meters and weighing dozens of kilograms. Against a predator like this, smaller species have almost no chance to survive. And when hundreds of thousands of individuals exist in the same area, this is no longer ecological balance. It becomes a process of continuous consumption. Since the early 2000s, roadside mammal surveys in the Everglades have recorded dramatic declines. Raccoons dropped by 99%, opossums by 98%, and even predators like bobcats by more than 87%. Areas once full of animal tracks are now almost empty. In many places, researchers admitted there was simply nothing left to hunt. By 2017, Florida was forced to launch an unprecedented large-scale python removal campaign. The state government officially created a specialized unit called Patrick, deployed year-round to track and remove pythons across the Everglades. At the same time, since 2013, the Florida Python Challenge has been organized regularly, turning python hunting into a statewide effort that attracts thousands of participants. Over the years, funding and manpower continued to increase, from state programs to community campaigns, bringing total spending to more than $10 million between 2017 and 2024, while removing over 23,000 individuals from the ecosystem. But these numbers still cannot keep up with nature. The problem is no longer about effort, it is about the environment itself. The Everglades is a vast wetland where visibility is limited by dense reeds and tracks quickly disappear in moving water. In such conditions, each female python can lay 50 to 100 eggs per clutch, and even a small survival rate is enough to rebuild the population at an astonishing speed. As a result, even after thousands are removed, the ecological gap is quickly filled again. Florida is chasing a target that always stays one step ahead. And then, the story takes an unexpected turn. In Vietnam, the same species is being farmed. In Vietnam, this very same species is being farmed on purpose. In fact, pythons have existed in the wild in Vietnam since thousands of years BCE as a familiar part of the tropical ecosystem. However, it was not until the late 1990s, when wildlife conservation and management regulations became stricter, that this species began to be introduced into controlled farming systems. Since then, a python farming industry has gradually developed, mainly concentrated in Dong Nai, Ho Chi Minh City, and the Mekong Delta provinces, with several hundred to several thousand households involved. The total scale is estimated at around 50,000 individuals in licensed facilities. Unlike the image of a dangerous wild predator, pythons here are raised in solid, dry enclosures, arranged in separate compartments to ensure safety while allowing stable growth. A typical farm maintains 50 to 500 individuals, while larger operations can expand to thousands, operating almost like a biological production line with clear breeding and growth processes. From a species once considered a threat in the wild, pythons have now become a stable source of income for farmers, with an estimated economic value of about $3 to $5 million per year. If in Florida, pythons are an uncontrollable predator, then in Vietnam they have become a tightly managed food conversion machine. The food used on python farms is nothing unusual: low-value fish, chickens, ducks, and even byproducts from other livestock industries. But the difference lies in how they consume it. Unlike traditional livestock that must be fed every day, a python can swallow prey weighing 1 to 3 kilograms in a single meal, then digest it slowly over many days, even weeks. This feeding pattern significantly reduces overall feeding costs compared with conventional farm animals. After only about 12 to 18 months, an individual can reach 10 to 20 kilograms, which is enough for market sale. Under good farming conditions, adult pythons can grow up to 5 to 6 meters long and weigh more than 70 to 90 kilograms. The market price of python meat usually ranges from $5 to $8 per kilogram, not including the much higher value from their skin and other byproducts. Thanks to their ability to eat infrequently but grow quickly, along with the use of low-cost feed sources, pythons have been transformed from a wild predator into a livestock model with significant economic value. But the journey of the python does not end when it leaves the farm. After being collected, the animals are transported to specialized processing facilities, where every step must be carried out carefully to preserve the value of the skin. First, the python is immobilized to ensure the next stages can be performed safely and in a controlled manner. Then, a controlled cut is made along the length of the body, marking the beginning of the most important stage, separating the skin from the body. At this stage, a distinctive technique is applied. Low-pressure water is injected beneath the skin. This helps the skin separate gently from the underlying muscle without damaging its surface structure. The body is then hung vertically so gravity can assist the process, allowing the skin to detach evenly along its full length. After being completely separated from the body, the python's skin is carefully processed centimeter by centimeter to preserve its natural surface structure and scale patterns. The entire skin is then covered with a layer of salt for about 24 to 48 hours to remove moisture, limit microbial activity, and slow natural decomposition. The salt is shaken off, and the skin is washed several times with water to remove impurities trapped between the scales. Processing solutions are then applied to stabilize the skin's natural protein structure, improving durability and reducing deformation during later drying. Each skin is stretched flat on shaping boards to maintain its size and keep tension evenly distributed along its length. Fixing points are aligned with the body axis to preserve the natural scale pattern and prevent warping as the material dries. Once shaped, the skins are hung on drying racks in natural conditions and allowed to dry slowly. The drying rate is kept stable to prevent surface cracking or uneven shrinkage between larger and smaller scale areas. Once stable, each skin is sorted by length, size, and pattern quality, then packaged according to biological material transport standards before entering the next stages of high-grade leather production. From this point on, python skin leaves the raw material processing chain and enters the world of design. First, each skin goes through a strict inspection process, from thickness, elasticity, and pattern consistency to tiny surface defects that are almost impossible to detect with the naked eye. Only the highest quality skins are selected for use in premium products. After that, designers begin creating pattern layouts based on the natural direction of the scales. Aligning the cutting lines with the scale structure not only improves the visual appearance, but also determines the durability of the final product. Every cut and every stitch must be controlled with precision down to the millimeter. At this stage, the skin that was once part of a natural ecosystem begins its transformation into a material of the luxury industry. Python leather appears in designs from brands such as Gucci, Prada, Jimmy Choo, Versace, and Louis Vuitton, where its value lies not only in durability, but also in the unique pattern of each skin. No two python skins are exactly the same, and that uniqueness defines luxury craftsmanship. Leaving behind the bright lights of fashion runways, another part of the python appears on glowing charcoal grills. In cuisine, python meat is not a common everyday dish, but it is special enough to appear on many must-try lists. After being cleaned and deodorized, the meat is usually cut into bite-sized pieces, marinated with lemongrass, chili, and spices, then grilled over charcoal or quickly stir-fried in a hot pan. As it cooks, the surface turns lightly golden and releases a rich aroma with a slightly fatty but distinctive scent. Its texture is one of its most interesting features. Python meat is not as soft as chicken and not as tough as beef. Instead, it is firm, naturally sweet, and able to retain moisture when prepared properly. When grilled at the right temperature, the outside becomes slightly crisp, while the inside remains tender and juicy. In many specialty restaurants, python meat typically costs around $5 to $8 per kilogram, making it more than just a dish. It becomes a unique culinary experience. The process does not stop with the meat or the skin. Another less visible part of the python continues through its own processing pathway, the fat. Depending on its size, a market-ready python can provide about 1 to 3 kilograms of fat. This fat is cut into small pieces and gently heated so it melts slowly, then filtered through several layers to remove impurities. The process must be carefully controlled because excessive heat can reduce oil quality. After processing, the fat becomes a clear, pale yellow oil with almost no strong smell. The oil is then bottled and brought to market, where it is commonly used for massage and skincare. Although not widely noticed, python oil remains a practical product that continues to appear in everyday use. If you look at the Everglades, you will see an ecosystem where pythons can survive with very few natural barriers. But when the same species is placed in Vietnam, the first thing that changes is not the animal, it is the surrounding context. In Southeast Asia, pythons are not a newly introduced species. They have existed long enough for other species to adapt to them, and more importantly, for humans to understand how they function in nature. As a result, there has never been an ecological gap allowing them to grow beyond control. Another difference comes from how people interact with this species in daily life. A python appearing in the wild rarely remains independent for long because it quickly becomes part of practical human use. Being captured, used, or traded, this continuous demand creates enough pressure to prevent large, uncontrolled populations from forming. As a result, the species has little chance to expand silently or spread beyond control, and that is the clearest difference. So could Florida do the same as Vietnam? In theory, it may sound reasonable. In reality, the situation is far more complicated and largely impractical. In Florida, pythons are not only an invasive species, but also carry risks that make commercial use difficult. Using them for food faces legal barriers, public concerns, and environmental issues. Many individuals in the Everglades also show contamination risks, such as heavy metals, making large-scale utilization unreliable from the start. The bigger difference lies in the surrounding system. Southeast Asia already has a long-established consumption culture, stable markets, and experience managing the species within natural control cycles. Florida does not have these conditions. So the question is not whether Florida wants to farm pythons. It is that Florida cannot manage them the same way Southeast Asia does, because a species only gains value when it exists within the right ecosystem. A python does not turn itself into a disaster. It simply does what it was created to do: hunt, survive, and adapt. The real difference comes from how humans place it into an environment without fully understanding the consequences. When a species is introduced into the wrong place, into an ecosystem with nothing to control it, disaster becomes almost inevitable. But when people understand it and place it within the right system, that same species can become part of an economic value chain. In the end, the problem was never the python itself. It was human decisions. If you'd like to explore more stories like this, don't forget to like and follow Mandarin Tech.